It's Thursday, May 12th, 2022. Thomas Miller on the Fun Astrology Podcast. And do you know where your planets are? Hopefully you do, and hopefully you know where some of the transits are. Thank you for those of you who are continuing to come into the course. I'm just leaving the price where it is for right now because you like it. All right, one thing in the sky, and it's already happened. The moon is now in Libra. That's where it stays all the way until Saturday morning, including the peak of the moon wobble, which happens on Friday, the 13th. And that was one of the things I wanted to talk about. We are getting ready to embark on this new podcast with Robert Glasscock, which is going to be so much just incredible astrological learning. You're going to love this podcast. But something is on my mind, so I thought maybe today, since the moon has already done its thing, all the rest of everything else is in place, we still have a very tight stack of planets, especially between Pisces and now Gemini. But you know, Mercury retrograde, the spirit of Mercury retrograde is to reassess, reevaluate, refresh. So let's just take a look at some things from a macro perspective here this morning for just a couple of minutes. Whenever you have Mercury retrograde, that's kind of like the big, most popular thematic trigger of this. But whenever you have complex or what are perceived as challenging aspects in a chart, like what we have now, Mercury retrograde already, Jupiter in a fire sign, moon wobble peaking, total lunar eclipse overnight, Saturday night, happens at 12:14 Sunday morning Eastern time. So for a lot of you, that will be Saturday evening. And it's almost like ants coming out of the woodwork after spraying for them. You know, it's like, blah, 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 scatter. Here come the posts about the negative. And look, I really, as you know, respect the roots of astrology and the Hellenistic studies that are popularized today, and I follow a lot of them myself. And they were often fatalistic, and they were often negative. One of my favorite astrology authors is Saphiriel. Some of those old techniques that are really not being passed down today. And that's one of the things that I'm hoping that our podcast with Robert Glasscock does, is helps pass some of these techniques into the modern generation. But even Saphiriel, you have to read with an updated eye. So just because Mars and Saturn and Pluto and Uranus and Neptune are the Darth Vader march, right, doesn't mean that. Because we know today that there are two sides to every coin. So I'd like to be blatant here today in making a point that I've been making more, maybe a little more subtly, but let's just put it right out there. And then I'm going to follow it up with something on Saturday as a special broadcast to really kind of lock in this point. That is that we have the ability of choice and we have the ability to consciously create our future. And the way that I blend the two of these for me personally, and this just works for me, is that I look at the astrology to see where the wind is blowing. Just like I would look at the weather before going on a hike in the woods for half of the day. I want to know, is there a front coming in? Are we in between fronts? Could there be a threat of weather while I'm out during this length of time? How should I dress? What's the temperature, etc.? No different. I want to know what the energy of the day is. And so do you, and that's why you come here. And then, in that context, and armed with that knowledge, then I like to sit down and create what that's going to mean to me. You've heard me talk about this a lot, and I was having a conversation with somebody about this very thing just last week, talking about Saturn and Pluto and the challenges that they can present. And a lot of that depends on where we are consciously, ourselves. Does Saturn need to wake us up? Or do we see Saturn and we think, structure, foundation, legacy, strength, dependability, the long game, etc.? Well, it depends on you. I've talked about this quite a bit also in the Subconscious Mind Mastery podcast, so kind of blending the two together. Our journey here, when people say, what is my purpose? Why am I on the planet? Why am I taking up this space in this time? It's for your soul to grow. The chart shows the broad map. It shows the weather picture. It shows the horizon. And then we can create within that. Weather says you've got a hard aspect to this eclipse. Great! Perfect time to build some strength into that area of your life. Saturn sitting on top of your sun, sitting on top of your midheaven. The ancients would have said, hide in a cave. I say plant the seeds for your future. Build something that will outlast you, or lay the great foundation for your next incarnation. If you're up around my age, be thinking about the future as in the future of the next time I incarnate, whether it's here or somewhere else. And I know all the woo-woo stuff comes out on that one, but you know what I mean. However you believe, or if you're believe a biblical perspective and we're going to heaven when we die, well, then lay the foundation of what that's going to look like. I think in light of this new Mercury retrograde that started this week, that's one of the reevaluations that we can do, is to take a look at how we choose to approach these quote-unquote challenging things in the chart. Not as a crutch, not as a blame pole, but as reading the weather as a sign of energy that we can work with in order to build things into our lives. I think that is a wonderfully fresh perspective. Oh, and for those of you who saw that big grand trine in today's chart with Pluto, the Libran moon, and Mercury, I hope this communicates powerfully. Have a great day. Love you. Bye-bye.